Okay. Welcome everyone to the IAM221 lightning talk this afternoon. I'm Rahul Sharma. I'm a principal product manager at AWS. And I'm really excited and thrilled to share the stage with one of AWS and Amazon Cognito's customer, Wiz. I'll pass over the mic to my co-speaker to introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Alex Duarte. I'm the field CTO for login and role-based access control at Wiz. And I'm very excited to speak to you today about Wiz's journey.
Thank you, Alex. In today's session, we'll talk about how you can secure and scale your customer identity and access management with Amazon Cognito. And as Alex called out, we'll learn about Wiz's migration journey and how Wiz achieved success in doing so, and some of the key lessons and learnings from there. More specifically, we'll focus on 4 key topics in today's discussion. We will talk about how customer IAM or SIAM is at the centerpiece of digital transformation, and how does Amazon Cognito, as a modern SIAM solution, help meet the needs of organizations. We'll talk about user migration strategies supported by Cognito, and then we'll dovetail into understanding Wiz's migration strategy to Cognito and learn about key takeaways, best practices, and lessons learned that you can implement in your migration journey and modernization journey. So without much ado, let's get started. Let's understand why is SIAM at the heart of digital transformation. In this slide, I'm going to have all of you focus on 3 key stats that are backed by various studies and research that's critical to understanding why SIAM is critical. First, 88% of online users today are less likely to return after a bad online experience. What does this mean? Customer experience is critical. Login screen and frictionless experience there impedes loyalty and revenue, and therefore it's critical. Second, 42% of online users abandon their purchases because of forgotten passwords. Poor auth equals lost revenue opportunity for our customers. Modern organizations look for fast, secure, and yet seamless mechanisms for users to log in. And third, 74% of data breaches today involve stolen credentials, social engineering, amongst others. What does this mean? Login screens and customer identity is at the forefront, or is at the first attack surface area for malicious actors, and therefore securing it is critical for our customers. So let's understand, keeping this context in mind, where does modern SIAM really fit in? Where does SIAM fit in? What we hear from our customers regularly is that SIAM isn't only about login and sign up. It's much more beyond that. It's all about making sure you have a secure, scalable, and frictionless way for customers to log in. And it's a mechanism that organizations use to improve their time to market, protect end users better, and ensure that their end users can seamlessly log in. This takes place based on how SIAM solutions can support hyperscale demands. As organizations scale, so does there is a requirement for millions of users to log in, thousands of authentications per second. You want a SIAM solution that helps you scale up and down without having to manage infrastructure. Secondly, the key aspect here is making sure your dev velocity is fast. Your time to market is critical for customers here. What we hear often is that legacy tools or inbuilt authentication systems are often complex, fragile, or hard to scale. Developers end up spending a lot of time in incurring undifferentiated heavy lift to build complex auth orchestration system. Here you need a modern SIAM solution that can help give customers pre-built components so that customers or developers themselves don't have to worry about new open standard specifications, compliance regimes, amongst others. Global compliance is equally critical. In industries and geographies across the world, various compliance regimes are becoming increasingly non-negotiable, be it HIPAA, FedRAMP, amongst others. You want a solution that allows you to get you out-of-the-box compliance with all of these right from the get-go so that you don't have to worry about any plumbing. And lastly, threat sophistication. Attackers today are getting increasingly sophisticated. There are new emerging threat vectors that makes it easy for attackers to steal customers' credentials through credential stuffing or do session hijacking. You want a solution which has pre-built components to detect threat from these vectors as well as remediate it. And this is where Amazon Cognito comes into the picture. A quick show of hands, how many of you here have worked or used Amazon Cognito? A couple of you. So for those who haven't, I'll give a very quick introduction of what Cognito really is. Amazon Cognito is AWS's customer IAM solution, and in the most simplest way, it really helps developers get started with simplifying sign up, sign in, and protect users at scale. So how does Cognito achieve this? First, high availability and scale. As an AWS solution, Cognito is available across multiple AWS regions. It supports millions of users, and as your organization scales up and down, you don't have to manage any underlying infrastructure as your usage scales. Cognito today processes over 100 billion authentications per month, just to give you a scale of the operation. Second of all, as I touched upon in my previous slide, Cognito helps offload the heavy lifting required by developers in traditional, who are building custom applications to support auth infrastructure internally. Cognito helps you manage end-to-end authentication flow without having you to say set up complex customizations on top. Cognito helps you with several things. First, you can get up your user directory and user pool setup within a few minutes. It helps you support various paradigms of authentication out of the box, like traditional password-based auth or passwordless-based authentication, including passkeys-based support. It also is natively integrated with several AWS services, be it Lambda, Web Application Firewall, API Gateway, so that developers themselves don't have to do the plumbing necessary to orchestrate complex auth flows. Thirdly, Cognito also helps you get started with meeting the needs of various compliance regimes, like HIPAA, FedRAMP, amongst others. And then finally, Cognito comes with pre-built components to detect and protect against account takeover attempts from malicious or fraudulent users who are trying to take control of legitimate users. So keeping this context in mind, let's understand some of the core user migrations patterns supported by Amazon Cognito. This is critical for customers who are considering SIAM solutions because a lot of your strategy would depend upon various bespoke business needs you may have. We support various of them, and I'm going to just give you a flavor of the pros and cons of either, and then talk about Viz's strategy in specific. So first of all, we have what we call user import jobs, wherein you essentially have a CSV bulk upload where you can rapidly migrate, cut over your existing users from legacy systems over to Cognito. The advantage is that it's very fast, but at the same time, the disadvantage is you will have to reset customers' end users' password when they try logging in. The second option is admin-created users. What does this mean? In this example, in this particular strategy, as IT admins, you can automatically provision users, set various user attributes, set temporary passwords, and get started very quickly. The third is just-in-time migration strategy. As the name suggests, no downtime, seamless. The way it works is you essentially have Lambda triggers configured to interact with your legacy or traditional auth systems. The Lambda function here validates end users' credentials against the legacy system. And once end users log in and their credentials are successfully validated, Amazon Cognito helps write those user profiles directly into Cognito, and you just seamlessly cut over users as they log in. The downside with this just-in-time migration is that it tends to be a little longer because you may have a long tail of inactive users who might still be on your underlying auth system. What we hear constantly from a lot of our customers is that they try to mix and match these strategies, like combine just-in-time with user import job to meet their business needs. And last but not the least, there's also a hybrid approach popular with several B2B customers or businesses selling to other businesses, where new tenants new users are provisioned in the new system, and existing tenants control their migration steps. I'm going to hand it over to Alex, who is going to talk to you more about Viz's story.
Thank you, Rahul. So, hi everybody, how's everybody doing today? Everyone having a good day so far? Great. So I want to talk to you a little bit about today about how Wiz went ahead and started doing their migration into Amazon Cognito. So for those of you who haven't heard of Wiz before, Wiz is trusted by more than half of the Fortune 100 amongst the cloud environments in the world. We span across every industry, companies like Salesforce, Snowflake, highly regulated financials like Morgan Stanley and Blackstone, even healthcare organizations like Pfizer and Takeda. Every industry there in between at this point is utilizing the Wiz platform. We're also very proud to be rated as the leader in cloud security based on customer reviews on satisfaction. So at the end of the day, what did we do to get into the Cognito platform? Right, so Wiz offers a, apologies there. So Wiz offers a unified agile security platform that secures your entire cloud landscape from code to runtime. Our primary product, Wiz Cloud, gives agentless visibility, prioritizes risk, and empowers developers. At this point, more than half of the users in our platform are not even necessarily in the security team. Right, at the end of the day, we want to try and democratize all of security and try to get the issues where they need to be resolved. Right, sometimes in the security team it's very effective. Other times, if we can get it directly to the teams, you're going to have a lot faster remediations occurring. With Wiz Code, that helps you start out at the very forefront of security, making sure that anything that does make it into your cloud environments is already got a really good step up in security. And then when all your checks maybe are not quite there, Wiz Defense is going to help you stop any of those active threats that might be occurring in your environment, whether they're due to misconfigurations or whether they're due to any new vulnerabilities that have been found. It's all built on our security graph for shared context, which provides a much better experience. This helps more than half of our customers achieve zero critical issues. Apologies here. And at the outcome here is that when we enable you to find these issues at the source, right, you have security built into the design of all of your applications, and you have a much more secure cloud environment as an outcome. So, business context here. Why did we decide to make the migration, right? So at the end of the day, we needed to be able to be FedRAMP compliant, right? So Wiz strived for FedRAMP medium, and we will soon be FedRAMP high authorized. Also, our previous IAM solution, we had an SLA of about 95%. As my colleague Raul here mentioned, right, if you have a poor web experience when you first go to sign in, you're a lot less likely to come back. And in our project to democratize security, we don't want that to happen, right? Like as we mentioned, more than half of our users are not security mindset, right? They want to try to get in, look at the issues, see what's wrong, and remediate them. If they start having issues getting into that data, they're a lot less likely to trust the platform and come back. Therefore, increasing our SLA is very important to us, and our projected SLA going into Cognito is slated to be about 99.9%, up from the 95%. At the end of the day, who doesn't like cost savings as well, right? So overall, better SLAs, lower cost, that's just going to be a match made in heaven there. And then we needed to find a solution that could co-locate our portal users as well as our machine identities, right? We don't want to have multiple different platforms handling different types of identities. Therefore, we want to make sure everything's in the same solution. So one of the things here, what we wanted to make sure is that customers are in full control. At the end of the day, we believe that you need to productize this migration, right? You don't want to just make it a project. You want to make sure that your users are able to decide when they're going to migrate to these new platforms. Again, if you make it a really good experience, they're a lot more likely to go forward with the migration, and it's also a lot less work to have to do anything like this manually. And then you have the carrot and a stick motivation, right? If we have some users on the old model, some users on the new model, you start migrating, they start going into the new model versus the old. Some users might think, okay, everything's still working just fine. Why go through the effort of migrating? That does still have a negative impact in downtime, et cetera. We wanted to try and squash as much downtime as possible. So with our approach, there was no downtime. Right? Most users were already logging in, getting new identities provisioned into the new environment. And as of this motivation, we wanted to make sure that any of our new features were only found utilizing the new identity platform. So how we kind of started to think about this, right? This was a multi-month journey here. It expanded about a year in the making here. So we wanted to, first and foremost, validate best practices across all of our deployment paths. right? We wanted to make sure that from start to finish, everything would work as expected. Months 2 to 3, we started doing a proof of concept with an integration environment with the key product features. Right. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that the core functionality that 80% or better of our users are utilizing was able to be utilized in the new integration platform. Month 4, we went ahead and opened up the Amazon Cognito infrastructure to all of our new customer tenants. At the end of the day, you don't need to do a migration if the tenant never existed. So most of those users didn't even know that there was a migration going on because everything was just seamlessly occurring. Months 5 through 6, we invested our development focus into productizing this migration experience. This involved, pop-ups. It involved a bread path simulation of like what steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 were, what would happen at each step. Made sure that the users were very comfortable about every single step of this migration process, so that they knew exactly what was happening and what to expect along the way, without any intervention from our support staff. And then months 7 through 12, the new Cognito infrastructure features, right? Going back to that carrot on a stick model, we wanted to ensure that any of our new features were only found in the new migration platform, because we wanted to ensure that the migration was going through successfully, and we didn't want to have to support 2 identity providers at the same time for an extended period of time. Therefore, we wrapped it all together, and you are able to see here an example of what that migration experience looked like. Our most administrative, most privileged users within the platform would see these types of banners, and encouraging them to move along and start doing this migration process. And at any point along the way, if they felt stuck or they felt that they weren't exactly sure what would happen, they were always encouraged to reach out and we would assist. But about 80% of our customers were able to do the migration all on their own without any additional assistance aside from the productization that happened here. We didn't have to move anybody forcefully. Everybody migrated through successfully, and everybody had a very seamless experience as to how the entire identity platforms were migrated. So our key takeaways: you want to make sure you design for business to business from day one. At the end of the day, you build with multi-tenancy and federated identities in mind. We want to make sure that migration is a product, not a project. Right. As you saw there, we want to make sure that you offer that self-served experience and you make it scalable across your entire customer base. You also want to customize the entire process of your authentication very early. We utilized Lambda triggers and supported very flexible authentication models throughout this migration process. You also want to make sure you collaborate cross-functionally, right? You involve your engineering teams, you involve your product teams, even your customer teams very early and as often as possible to make sure that everybody's having a solid experience. And lean on your SA team. Your solution architects bring critical hands-on experiences. Use them. That's all I can say. Just use them. What we wish we knew earlier. Business to business, not business to consumer. Multi-tenancy and federated identities brought very unique challenges into the architecture design and migration steps. So we wanted to make sure that, we wish we would have known a little bit sooner what some of those challenges would have entailed to really avoid any additional reworks that needed to occur. You want to put customers in control. We tried to initially set a migration where we would do a forceful migration across the platform, and we immediately found out that that was not going to work very successfully, and that's why we took this productized way of migration. So that being said, self-service is an absolute must. If you're able to productize it at scale, you'll never have to worry about this migration platform or doing a ton of manual work for these migrations. Start with machine identities in mind. You want to plan for the right service accounts as early as you can to avoid any costly reworks in how you store your identities, what type of identities that you're using, and what sort of platforms you want to utilize for those. And iterate. Don't wait. If you want to go ahead and try to get everything about 80% completed, you can always make changes. Things do not have to be perfect. If you wait for perfect, the migration project will never proceed forward. So how did we accomplish this, and what timeframes, and what was some of the metrics here, right? Our entire process here took about a year. In that year, we migrated over 1,000 customer tenants. We migrated over 10,000 monthly active users, and we migrated about 100,000 machine identities. In a single year, most of it done automatically through the productized migration platform. So needless to say, frictionless, seamless migration experience is absolute paramount for your migrations to be successful. It only took about a year for all this to come into play, and we couldn't have done it without the help of the Amazon Cognito product. So for our future plans here, we want to make sure, as we've noted, our SLAs are increased. We want to make sure we reduce any RTO. We want to enhance our machine identity usage, and we have a much tighter alignment with the Amazon Cognito team's roadmap as a design partner. That's it for my time. Thank you guys very much for listening to my talk today, and I'll hand you back to Raul.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Alex, to talk about Viz's migration journey. I hope you can take away some of the critical learnings as you implement your story. Just to quickly conclude, a few things to keep in mind. Do choose the right SIAM solution to meet your business needs. Identify what are the aspects of identity and auth orchestration you want to offload off to a SIAM solution. If you do choose Amazon Cognito, lean on AWS best practices before migrating. Choose the right migration strategy that we discussed a few slides before to meet your needs. Tailor the migration needs based on your specific requirements. And finally, in my next slide, I'll just briefly touch upon certain call to action that you can refer to. If you're a B2C customer, do refer to this talk a couple of years back from my colleague and Fandango, where they talked about a B2C approach towards migration. And then a couple of other talks that you can attend at Reinforce. We talked a lot about human identities and touched a little bit about machine identities. We have a lot more talks about non-human or machine identity piece that's supported by Cognito. So I encourage you all to try this out and take those sessions. Thank you so much.